It was December 31st, New Year's Eve. My friend Alex had hired me to watch his dog Bailey for the weekend while he was out of town to celebrate the new year. At 35 years old, I didn't have the same urge to go out and party like the 27-year-old Alex. So I was fine making some money and relaxing for the night. New Year's Eve fell on a Saturday. Alex left early that day for the city and wouldn't return until Sunday night. He gave me basic instructions to feed and walk Bailey twice per day and to keep her off the furniture. Bailey is a very small husky mix, about a third the size of a regular husky. She is also very quiet and well-behaved, which is why Alex was okay with me watching her instead of a dog sitter. I brought a backpack with my laptop charger, toiletries, and a change of clothes for Sunday. Alex and I weren't close friends. We had met through mutual friends and occasionally went out on weekends. I would be sleeping in Alex's spare bedroom on the futon. Throughout the day, I kept myself occupied with my laptop and some of Alex's video games. Later, I invited my girlfriend Trisha over with Alex's permission. His response, jokingly, was, "You better not in my bed," essentially saying she could come over. Trisha said she'd finish work after midnight and come straight to Alex's house, about a half-hour drive away. I had to entertain myself with movies and Bailey until she arrived, around 9 p.m. That's when the doorbell rang. It was a woman who looked about 30, wearing a hoodie and jacket. She introduced herself as Alex's girlfriend, saying she left something in his room that she needed to grab. I offered to get it for her, but she declined, going straight upstairs and partially closing the bedroom door. She took a while before coming back down holding only her jacket. After thanking me, she headed straight for the door. I tried stopping her for a quick chat, asking how long they had been dating. She jokingly replied, "Too long," with a laugh, as if they had recently broken up. Now I worried about letting her in since Alex hadn't returned my text. I called him several times before he finally answered amid a loud party. Alex could hardly hear me on the phone over the loud party, so he went outside to talk. I told him about the woman who claimed to be his girlfriend coming by to grab something. He was bewildered, yelling, "Who are you talking about? I don't have a girlfriend." I described her appearance, but he had no idea who she could be. When I explained she went upstairs to his room for a few minutes, he started to panic. Alex had me check his room to see if anything was stolen. All his valuables seemed untouched. He tried figuring out who the woman was, saying he'd call me back after making some inquiries. Understandably, this put a damper on his night out. I could tell Alex had been drinking, and I felt stupid for letting a stranger inside. Alex sent me Instagram screenshots of various women, none matching the woman at his house. After an hour of silence, he cryptically texted he thought he knew who it was and not to let her back inside. I responded simply, not wanting further involvement in Alex's drama. I watched the New Year's celebrations alone. Later, my girlfriend Trisha finally arrived. When I told her what happened, she was shocked. Suddenly, Bailey the dog perked up at a knock at the door. Not wanting to answer it, Trisha and I stayed quiet until whoever it was left. Now I felt unnerved, worried it may have been connected to the earlier woman. We decided to retreat to the spare bedroom with a movie. As we laid on the futon holding each other, we fell asleep. Some unknown time later, I awoke to Bailey howling at the bedroom door, wagging her tail. I whispered for her to be quiet, and she came over to lay with us, staying there for the rest of the night. By force of habit, we had locked the bedroom door. Thankfully, as a girl's voice outside said, "Alex." I signaled for Trisha to stay quiet. This girl was not alone. Another light tap at the door. Then the girl said, "Who's in there?" "This is Alex's house." I decided to loudly yell, as if unafraid. "The cops have been on their way for a few minutes now, just so you know." The girl asked, "Who are you?" I whispered for Trisha to actually call the police, which she did quietly into the phone. Louder, I said, "I dare you to do something, because the moment you do, the cops will be running through the front door." I heard whispering outside, then multiple pairs of footsteps walking away. We waited in the room for police to arrive, as the front door had been left wide open. The cops came right in, finding the house now empty. I recounted the story to one officer while speaking to Alex on the phone, drunk and barely coherent. Another cop talked to Alex directly for a few minutes. Though this was a messy situation with Alex too far to return, he practically begged me to stay the night for safety. I had Trisha go home while I remained, feeling responsible for letting in the initial woman. I wedged a chair under the door and stayed locked in with Bailey for the rest of the night. By morning, the intruders did not return. Alex came back earlier than planned. For privacy, I won't share more personal details. But the story Alex later told suggests the woman's intention in breaking in was not theft, which is most concerning. He changed his locks, and as far as I know, nothing else happened in the years since. I once booked an Airbnb by myself in rural Arizona for a job interview that was too far from home. I decided to make a short trip out of it. This particular listing was much cheaper than any hotels in the area, about half the price. It was located about 30 minutes from where my interview would be, which I didn't mind. The house was situated at the end of a secluded dirt road, with a nice view of the desert landscape from the backyard. I brought my laptop to work on some projects for my current job during the day. This kept me busy for most of my stay. My interview was scheduled for the second of my 3-day trip, which was a Tuesday. On Monday evening, I was practicing common interview questions in the living room around 9 p.m. That's when I heard a faint tapping sound at the window. It wasn't quite a knock, more like a gentle tap of a finger. Naturally, my head swung towards the window, but I didn't see anyone outside in the darkness. It could have been a bug. We get some big ones out there. The next day, my interview went well, and I explored the small town during the rest of my trip. That night, while watching TV, I heard the tapping again, but this time I knew it wasn't an insect. More disturbed, I rushed to the window but still saw no one. I checked the other windows and front door but found nothing. Stepping out onto the back porch, I heard a clicking sound in the distance beyond the house lights. Another click responded when I yelled out, and that's when I spotted a shadowy figure standing just beyond the property line, dressed all in dark clothing. The figure seemed to blend into the darkness of the desert as they walked away. Not wanting to get any closer, I called out, "You're on private property. I'm calling the cops if you don't leave now." I saw them eerily quicken their pace into the night. Who could it be prowling around so late? The isolated location made me question if it was somehow the Airbnb host, but that seemed a stretch. The next night, I was watching another episode of Breaking Bad in bed around 10:30 p.m., headphones in to drown out any noises. But my thoughts kept returning to the strange encounter. As the credits rolled and I turned off the light, a muffled click sounded from the slightly open closet within seconds. Springing from the bed in my PJs, panic set in. I ran outside and jumped in my car, starting it immediately. As I called 911, I kept my eyes fixed on the small house, half expecting to see someone emerge while reporting what happened to the dispatcher. A police car arrived shortly. We did a sweep of the place together. It was so small with few hiding spots. Nothing was found, but I packed up anyway and checked into a hotel that night, contacting Airbnb and the host. Only a partial refund was offered, leaving me unsettled. Who could have been watching and toying with me after dark? The isolated location and access suggested maybe the host, but there were no signs of forced entry either. To this day, I'm still not certain if it was the owner pulling a strange prank, or an unknown intruder who knew just when to strike. I live alone in a busy neighborhood. This incident occurred about a year ago during the winter. We typically get a lot of snow where I live. There was already snow on the ground at the time, and it was very cold. One night as I was home alone, a large snowstorm hit the area as predicted. I was working from home for the next few days, so I had no plans to go out. The snow really started piling up quickly. Each time I looked out the window, there was more heavy snowfall. As it got to be around 7 p.m., there was a sudden knock at my front door. I found this odd since it was a heavy snowstorm. When I looked outside, I saw a young woman standing there. She didn't appear to have a car. From my front windows, I don't have a good view of the street or driveway, so I didn't know where she had come from. She looked to be in her early 20s, but was not dressed appropriately for the weather and just pants and a sweatshirt. When I opened the door, I asked her why she was out in the storm. She told me her ex-boyfriend had kicked her out of his car and driven off. She said she had called her mom, who was coming to pick her up. While I felt bad for her situation, I didn't like the idea of a stranger coming inside. However, with the heavy snowstorm, I reluctantly allowed her to wait inside near the front door. After entering, she unexpectedly walked straight back towards the dining room rather than waiting as asked. I was confused but didn't say anything. When she started moving further towards the back of the house out of view, I grew suspicious and followed. That's when I saw her opening the back door, letting 2 men inside. Here is a rewritten version. As the woman let the 2 men into my home, I could not believe what was happening. My instincts immediately kicked in. I turned and ran as fast as I could down the hallway toward my bedroom and bathroom. I could hear multiple sets of footsteps pursuing me, though they were still a bit behind. Once I reached the bathroom, I hastily shut and locked the door. Only seconds later, someone began aggressively trying to force it open. I could hear several people now crowded outside. Nobody said a word, including myself. When the door refused to budge from their attempts, there were a few loud bangs against it. With my phone, I dialed 911 but did not feel safe remaining in the bathroom. Right after initiating the call, but before speaking to the operator, I hurriedly opened the window. I climbed through it at record speed and jumped down into a snow-covered bush below. I then dashed through the deep snow in my yard, stumbling many times as I tried to flee as rapidly as possible. Managing to regain my footing, I eventually circled around to the street, maintaining my sprint until putting significant distance between myself and the house. Only then could I at last speak with the 911 operator and explain all that had transpired. Despite having no coat and the frigid conditions, I experienced no sensation of coldness due to my intense surge of adrenaline. When police arrived, the woman and 2 men had already escaped. Upon returning to my home, I discovered it in disorder with some possessions missing. Clearly they realized time was limited before authorities intercepted them, so only searched certain rooms. I feel extremely fortunate to have evaded harm, though dread considering their potential actions had I not. Since then, I refuse entry to anyone unknown and have installed additional security measures for protection. I pray a similar ordeal never happens again.